I'm a product of the public school system, not my whole life. I similar to this author, I actually had multiple different modes that my school took place in. I did private school at the beginning, moved to public school, did homeschool for a year, moved back to public school, moved back to homeschool for another year, finished in public school my last few years of high school. I mean, I moved all over the place. So I really do think that I've got a pretty well-rounded perspective of the pros and cons of the different modes of schooling that a parent can choose. And I can honestly say that I had some positive interactions in public school. I had a lot of negative ones too. But I think one of the big things to keep in mind is this individual who's writing this draws upon their personal experience. And I think it's important to remember times have changed dramatically. Uh,
Yeah.
I've talked a lot on the show about Aaron Ren's his three worlds framework of positive world, neutral world, negative world. And so for those who are not familiar, just to quickly catch up to speed, it's the idea that positive world is Christianity is viewed in a positive way. There are social benefits for being a Christian. Neutral world is kind of you do you. You might say you're a Christian. That's great. You do you. I'm atheist, or I'm Mormon, or I'm a vegan. Whatever the case may be, you do you. And then about 2014 is where Aaron Wren puts it, where we've entered negative world with ushering in of things like Obergefell and other major landmarks that kind of usher in negative world, where it's now a negative to be seen as a Christian. You're now viewed as a threat to social norms. That's what the kids are currently living under. That is what we are in the midst of. So in my mind, if I want to steelman the author's arguments here, I want to immediately think, okay, sure, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say that you had a great experience in public school. Well, let's look at what's changed in the public school system since you were in public school. For myself, I would have graduated high school in the very tail end of neutral world. And I could say that neutral world already is vastly different than negative world. The changes that have occurred since I've been out of school, there's no way in good conscience I could ever send my child to public school. But feel free to add any additional thoughts to that.
Yeah, I grew up graduating right smack dab in the middle of Bush, and I grew up in Christian school all my life. And so there was this sense, even as a young man, that, I wonder if I'm missing anything by not going to public school. Because the way evangelicals talk about reaching the lost, loving the lost, being missionaries, all that kind of stuff is very like pervasive in how Christians are reared. But I always went to Christian school, and I'm so thankful for that. I went to a secular university, although it's probably one of the more Christian universities in America, even more so than like Baylor. I think Texas A&M is probably more Christian than Baylor, but it was still secular. You encounter a lot of people there, a lot of different perspectives there. But yeah, I think this day and age, when you look around, I'm in Boulder County, Colorado, with Boulder Valley School District, St. Vrain School District, the state government. I mean, there's no escaping their agenda and what they're trying to push on Christians, how they discriminate against Christians, and you can't really do anything about it. Kids that have been in public school, that have been at my church, during Christmas, every other religion is allowed to celebrate their religion, but we're not allowed to celebrate. They're not allowed to do drawings or ornaments for Christians. And so it's a pervasive, dare I say, toxic. I hate using that word because that's what the left uses, but it's a terrible place to send children to. Now, the reason I think it appeals to so many normal evangelical Christians is they remember their upbringing. They go, there was football, there was homecoming, there was prom. There's all these core memories that they have of high school. And so they want that for their kid. And I don't blame them. I want that for my kid too. But if I have to choose between my sons playing football for the local public school or them getting a good Christian education, I know what I'm picking like every day, even if it costs me something, even if I have to homeschool, whatever it may be. And so I think, the times have definitely changed where, my mother-in-law was a public school teacher in a small town in Texas. And back then there was still prayer, there were normal Christian experiences. And now it's crazy out there. You've got the teacher union pushing certain agendas. It's just so bad. And so we don't like, I think I want to be clear on this episode. Like, I sympathize with Christian parents when they're faced with this choice. And I understand the financial cost and kind of like wanting to believe the best. And, it's not a requirement to be a member at my church that you have your kids not in public school. We have not gone that far, although some churches have, and I don't blame them for that. But I will say, like, the kids who go to public school have a worse outcome, both spiritually or anything else. Just one parent who pulled their, I was talking to him today at our church, pulled his kid out of public school last year, put him in a classical charter school, which is better, but still, charter, not fully Christian. But she has so many more Christian friends there, and she's so thankful that she's surrounded by Christian young people. And that's incredibly important for a young person. Young people are so impressionable. All people are impressionable, but especially during that age, middle school, high school. And it's super important that they're surrounded by people who, yeah, we can ask tough questions. We can do all this stuff, because in Christian schooling, you're going to get exposed. You're going to discuss those big things. And in my Christian school, we were discussing things like the Jesus seminar and liberal theology. We were discussing all these things and figuring out how to like engage with them biblically. And so this idea that Christian school somehow shelters you to a degree that you're inhibited from experiencing that kind of stuff or anything like that, it's a wrong premise. Unfortunate if she had that experience, but we can't judge it based on her experience. We have to judge it based on what we're dealing with here. And it's not just in Boulder, it's in Tennessee, it's in Texas, it's everywhere. These public schools are in many ways utterly corrupt. And again, I have members of my church who are in the public school as teachers, and God bless them for that. They're a light in a dark place. And so there's a place for that. I want them to do well in that. That can be hard, even as a Christian in a public school, because you yourself are subjected to trainings and curriculum that you may not agree with, and you may have very limited opportunity. But especially for young people, I mean, sending your kids into that kind of environment is sending sheep to the slaughter.
Yeah. Exactly. And I don't take any delight in this. And it sounds like you don't either. I was driving by a public school just maybe a couple weeks ago with my wife. And I looked at the public school, and I remember telling my wife, I was like, man, if our culture was healthy, like I think about exactly what you laid out. I think about like how much I wish my kids can just have sort of a normal upbringing. But to some degree, that's kind of the benefit of Positive World. Our parents thought it was normal, but the reality is it's not normal. I mean, the vast majority of our church history, Christianity has been on the fringes, not in the majority. It hasn't always been the dominant force of society, with the exception of course, this sort of period of time that we kind of refer to as Christendom. But outside of that, it's not the norm for kids to have all this this sort of extracurricular activities where they just get to participate in football with their friends and all this stuff that are true blessings of Positive World. But Positive World's no longer here, so now we have to recognize that we're a negative world and deal with it accordingly.